people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Set to go down later on this month, on the 28th, that's a Sunday, France's own Gangloff will be taking on veteran journeywoman Gemma Ruegg in what is an 8-rounder in the women's super flyweight division. A bit of a run-of-the-mill situation, run-of-the-mill so to speak. Gangloff lost a decision in her last fight, and she hopes to rebound, get back in the winner's bracket in her next fight. Opposite the ring, veteran journeywoman Gemma Ruegg. Very run-of-the-mill, all things considered. But what grabbed my attention is that this is for 8 3-minute rounds. 3-minute rounds.
Maylise is a solid fighter.
She can be a handful. I remember her giving Ebony Bridges a decent-sized fight when they fought well over a year ago. 27 years old to Gemma Ruegg, who is 39.
That's some age gap.
It is. Aside from this being billed for 8 3-minute rounds, even more surprising is that the distributor of the card seems to be Triller. Triller's Fight Club. I didn't even know Triller was still in the sport of boxing, or trying to be, but apparently they are, and they will be airing this fight, along with a few others.
That's what really got my attention. The 8 3-minute rounds.
Perhaps more than the fight itself, and what is customarily, female fighters fight for 10 2-minute rounds. This fight is for 8 3-minute rounds, a testament to Amanda Serrano's legacy and what she's trying to do for women boxers, that if the ladies want to fight for 3-minute rounds, they should have that option. They should have that choice, and here we see.
And wasn't Kalia Karuni's last fight for 3-minute rounds?
Kalia Karuni from Greece, otherwise known as Pink Tyson, I believe that her last fight was also for 3-minute rounds, so we are seeing a push in some circles, though not all, for 3-minute rounds in women's boxing matches. The sentiment is not uniform. It's not unanimous. Not every woman wants to fight for 3-minute rounds, but some do. These two.
What does it mean?
It means that for effective change that becomes uniform over time, you're going to need more women boxers, more women fighters pushing for 3-minute rounds instead of just 10 twos, though, because not everybody wants this change. Not every woman fighter wants to fight for 3 minutes.
It could take a while.
I think it boils down to the style. It depends on the fighter, really, if they would stand to benefit from more time in a round and more time in a fight to potentially get the other girl out of there to score a knockout. The theory is that if you have more time to set up your shots and you have more time to work the opponent, that will result in more knockouts, which will in turn make the sport more marketable, because casuals, they do love knockouts. Highlight reel knockouts.
My thoughts.
I see the virtue in both. I see the virtue of 10 twos or 12 threes. They both have their pros and cons. I mean, 10 twos make for a more fast-paced fight where there's no pussyfooting around. It's all action from the opening round to the final round. And all action fights, all action shootouts, that in and of itself makes the sport marketable. That's what made me gravitate towards it. That they get right down to business, no fucking around.
I like 10 twos.
But I also see the virtue in 12 threes. At least I understand it. In theory, that more time in a round and more time in a fight allows the fighter to wear down the opponent in order to rack up knockouts, though that's not to suggest that you can't rack up knockouts in 10 twos, because a lot of fighters do.
Though allowing a fighter more time in a round and more time in a fight might lead to more highlight reel knockouts, which will help sell the sport.
Change, as it were. Change really does come from within. Effective change, dramatic change. Thus, it will take the vast majority of female fighters, active fighters, demanding this change for it to become uniform. And from what I see, not everybody wants things to change. So things are going to get interesting. What fighters want to fight for 3-minute rounds and what fighters don't?
The majority rules.
Thus, the million-dollar question is, do the majority of women boxers, active boxers, actually want to fight for 3 minutes instead of just 2? Is this what the majority wants?
Because if it is, then that's what they'll get. But if it isn't...
If it isn't, then 3-minute rounds in a women's boxing match will remain a rarity. It's a story that only time can tell.
You know, this information was made aware to us in the middle of December. It's difficult because it's not our show, it's not our testing, it's not our fighter. You know, let's make it clear, it's not an adverse finding, but there are raised levels of HGH and testosterone in a test that we want to know more about. And, you know, in the end, the pressure was on to release that information yesterday. It is fight week, but I feel like there needs to be more transparency. Like, you know, it's not really on us to release that information. We're not scientists, but we also read the information, and of course it raises concerns to us. But at the same time, contractually, it's not an adverse finding.
That's the key here. That's what needs to be understood. That Beterbiev's records show an atypical finding for raised levels of HGH and testosterone metabolite. It's been revealed. Artur Beterbiev recorded an atypical finding, not an adverse finding, for raised levels of HGH and testosterone metabolite 5D androstenediol in a VADA test that was conducted on December 6th. The fight will go ahead.
Because it's not an adverse finding.
And he didn't test positive for any banned substances. Both of those substances, testosterone and HGH, occur naturally in the body, and follow-up tests that were recorded by VADA all came back negative. Callum Smith himself reacted to the news by saying, "It's not a passed test, it's not a failed test. The fight's still happening, that's the main thing. I'm not a scientist, I'm a fighter. I'm here to beat him, take his belts, and go back home."
My thoughts.
Anyone looking for a scandal in the sport of boxing, especially an anti-doping scandal, is sure to find one in this climate. You must understand that it's not an adverse finding, and they didn't find something in Artur samples that wasn't supposed to be there. They found what is already there, just slightly elevated levels of it, though not enough to suggest that this fighter may be doping.
But if what someone wants to do is cast an air of suspicion over Artur with this as the ammunition, well, that's exactly what they're going to do.
For the simple fact that it is being reported, that it's in the news, and it's in the headlines. For some people, simpletons really, that's enough to cast an air of doubt, an air of suspicion. And Artur being a Russian athlete, and Russian athletes having a bad rap for being juicers, all the ingredients are there to manufacture a scandal where perhaps there isn't one.
What do you mean when you say that Russian fighters, Russian athletes, have a bad rap for being juicers?
It's because they're not the only ones. Are Russian athletes and Russian fighters the only fighters that test positive for banned substances? Have you ever heard of Jarrell Miller, who tested positive for banned substances in the sport of kickboxing, tested positive 2 times for several banned substances in the sport of boxing?
And he's not Russian.
He's American, as is Ryan Martin, who tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs well after the Josh Taylor fight.
He's American.
And do you really need me, 2024, to run down an itemized list of fighters, diverse fighters from all around the world that have tested positive for banned substances and performance-enhancing drugs? Lucas Brown of Australia tested positive 2 times for a banned substance, as did Luis Ortiz.
As did Hannah Gabriels of Costa Rica and Alicia Baumgartner of America, as did Alejandra Jimenez of Mexico.
Oscar Valdez alongside her, and Conor Benn of the United Kingdom alongside Tyson Fury of the United Kingdom.
Right. What's your point?
My point is, this is not a uniquely Russian problem, and what we're talking about here is no problem at all, because Artur didn't actually test positive for any banned substances. What substances they're referring to are naturally occurring substances found in the body.
So you're saying he's innocent?
No, I'm saying the report says that. The report that everyone is talking about. The report that's making headlines, that's making news. That's what the report says. These elevated or slightly elevated levels of HGH and testosterone are natural occurrences in the body, and they must not be elevated all that much if they are so allowing the contest to go on. Though for anyone who wants to cast an air of doubt, an air of suspicion over Artur Beterbiev said, "It has come to my attention that Callum Smith intends to disseminate misleading information about my VADA testing for this fight. Let me be clear now. I am a clean athlete. I have never tested positive for a banned substance throughout my career. Any attempt to imply otherwise through innuendo or suggestion is slanderous and libelous. This conduct is beyond acceptable trash talk. Callum is already searching for excuses, looking for a way out. See you Saturday."
Kind of reminds me of what Sonny Edwards was suggesting ahead of the Bam Rodriguez fight a couple of weeks ago.
He was saying that because Bam is a snack systems fighter, and Snack Systems was founded by Victor Conti. Victor Conti, the man at the center of the Balco doping scandal all those years ago, he was trying to suggest that Bam might be a dirty fighter.
This feels like that.
Some of Errol Spence Jr.'s fans tried to do the same thing for the same reason to Terrence Crawford, who is also a Snack Systems fighter, not realizing so is Jaron Boots Ennis, who they're all of a sudden big fans of, the guy they're in love with, the anti-Crawford. He's a Snack Systems fighter too, so if you're saying that Terrence is guilty by association because of Snack, then so is Boots.
It's a witch hunt.
That's kind of what this Artur Beterbiev situation resembles, because what the report seems to indicate is that while there are slightly elevated levels of HGH and testosterone in Artur's body, these are naturally occurring substances in the body. It's not like it's EPO.
They're not saying they found a foreign substance or a banned substance in Artur's body, and whatever they did find, it's not enough to call the contest off.
Making all of this much ado about nothing, because they're still fighting. Whatever they found, Callum's still going to fight the guy, and Artur's still going to fight him back. The contest is still going to go on. I'm still going to watch it, and so are you.
The same way you still watch Tyson Fury fights even though he tested positive for nandrolone.
The same way that I still watch Alicia Baumgartner in spite of her anti-doping fiasco. She is far too attractive for me to care about that stuff.
Don't give a shit.
So let's just can the altruism. You're gonna watch that fight on Saturday just as much as I'm gonna watch that fight on Saturday.
I'm still gonna think Alicia Baumgartner is smoking hot. Banned substances or no banned substances.
All right, enough about Alicia.
The point is that this is much ado about nothing.
I'm not about to turn a mountain into a molehill when the contest is going through and Callum is going through with it. He's the one who's going to be in the ring with this guy. He's the one that's going to be on the receiving end of those shots, those punches. And if he doesn't care enough about this to call it off, then why should I?
You want I should lose my mind over what's being described as an atypical finding. Atypical. Key word. Typical.
Get the fuck out of my face. You don't care that much, and neither do I. But I don't pretend to. You do.
Look at the world's smallest violin.
So you can deduce from Artur's comments, he's not taking this innuendo and these insinuations lying down, which may give him an added incentive to put the beats on Callum Smith. Really send him a message. If he is so suggesting that Artur is a dirty fighter, Artur's going to show him just how dirty he can be, how dirty he can get. And if that's not an added incentive enough, Eddie Hearn has confirmed to reporters that Dmitry Bivol, the only other champion at this weight, has signed on to fight Artur Beterbiev for the undisputed light heavyweight world championship in Saudi Arabia. But first, Artur must beat Callum on Saturday night, then agree to his own deal in order to finalize the fight. For years now, I've been waiting for this, and a part of me wants Artur to make it through it because that's the fight I've been waiting for. Beterbiev versus Bivol seems a lot more interesting to me than Smith versus Bivol, because if Smith wins and he catches him with a good shot, I'm confident he won't catch Dimitri with that shot.
If Callum pulls the upset on Saturday and catches Artur with a good shot, I don't think he catches Dimitri with that shot. I'm confident that Dimitri outpoints him, wins a points decision, whereas with Artur, it's a little bit more interesting because Artur's got power in both hands, a 100% knockout percentage.
That means that at any given moment, in any given round of the given fight, he can turn things around. He can catch Dimitri with a shot that gets him out of there. That makes that contest a lot more interesting, even if I am going with Dimitri Bivol to be the one to beat Artur Beterbiev. You have to admit, a guy who can knock you out at any moment, in any round, that adds an air of intrigue to the match that I don't think Callum would bring to it. Previous instances, some have felt that this was a fight that Dimitri Bivol didn't want, that Dimitri Bivol was swerving, where here we see that he's already signed his end. He wants the fight.
He's always wanted that fight. He didn't all of a sudden start pursuing it just because the Saudis got involved.
He was actively pursuing that fight before the Saudis even came into the picture, before he beat Zurdo Ramirez, and before he beat Canelo Alvarez. He was pursuing that fight, and it was Top Rank, it was Bob Arum that was sandbagging it. They were the ones dragging their feet, saying that the fight's got no razzmatazz, no pizzazz, and Dimitri is a boring fighter. Close to 3 years ago, it was the people at Top Rank that poured cold water on that fight. Now, I'm not saying that to suggest that Artur is scared of Dimitri. I don't think Artur is scared of anybody, but I don't think Dimitri's scared of Artur either. What I do think is that the people at Top Rank weren't crazy about making that fight.
They were the ones sandbagging it.
Because of the operational costs. What's it going to take to get both guys in the ring? How much money is that going to run them to get two Russian nationals in the ring with each other, even if it is for undisputed, when the fight's not a hot ticket in America? In America, the fight won't sell but so much because their guy is the older guy who's getting up there in age, and you're going to spend all this money to do the show so that your guy might lose.
I don't think Top Rank was too keen on making it. That doesn't mean Artur was afraid or Artur was apprehensive.
That means certain factors in association with the fight might have made the fight unattractive to them. And lest we forget, they would have had to work with Matchroom in order to do the show. They don't want to send their guy over to Matchroom and DAZN, though at the same time, they don't want to have to pay for Dimitri to come to them. What kind of money is he going to want?
They didn't want to have to work with Matchroom.
You ask yourself, but aren't they ending up working with Matchroom anyway? And no, not necessarily. What's about to happen isn't happening on Matchroom's dime or Top Rank's dime. It's the Saudis bankrolling the show, and the rights to the fight will be distributed evenly between Top Rank and Matchroom and their broadcast partners. Thus, everybody wins.
Everybody gets what they want. The rights to the fight are going to be distributed evenly between the promoters and their broadcast partners. The fighters, they're going to make the kind of money that they want to make, and the fans that want to see this, they'll get to see it.
And what makes it all possible is the Saudis are paying for it, and they have very, very deep pockets. Which brings us all here.
If it were any one promotional outfit trying to do the show on their own dime, they have to weigh the cost of the show, what the fighters want, and its overall commercial value, whether or not they can make the numbers work.
But if the Saudis pay for it, whatever it costs, well, the promoters don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about anything.